following up on Queer Money Podcast, episode number 39.
And we want to welcome all of you from Twitter and Facebook. This is our first time going live. We usually do these lives just on YouTube, but we are now going live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter.
And maybe Periscope. We're not entirely sure.
Yeah,
we don't understand things.
Right. We purchased some software that allows us to stream to multiple platforms now, so that we can try to connect with as many as you as possible.
Exactly. So on episode 39, we talked with Sarah Li-Cain of the Beyond the Dollar podcast about what it means to live an authentic life. And so we're going to dive a little bit into that today. For those of you who are new to the Queer Money follow-up series, as part of a psychotic challenge that David and I made for ourselves for 2021, we thought we would go back to the very first episode of the Queer Money podcast from almost 5 years ago and revisit each episode to see what nuggets of wisdom we can pull out of them, or to see what's changed over the last 5 years, or to see if maybe our opinions or our strategies have changed over the last 5 years. So
right. If you don't listen to the podcast regularly, we are on episode 248 this week. 248 episodes, and some of you are just now finding us. We're seeing this big spike in the number of subscribers and listeners. So some of you are brand new to us, and if you haven't, this is a way to introduce you to some of the content that we created in the past. We oftentimes,
I have to say, the stuff is good.
Well, and what's interesting is we get people reaching out to us on a regular basis saying, we'd love it if you covered this topic, or why don't you cover that topic? And what we're surprised to find is that the vast majority of those are already topics that we covered on the Queer Money podcast. So we're kind of revisiting them. We're putting some life back into these zombies.
We're doing something called remix and revisiting, as the Queen once did. Just once, though. So if you've not joined us before, with whatever channel you're on, please like, subscribe, and set notifications on the channel that you're on so that you know when we go live with these Queer Money follow-ups, currently every single day, or until we lose our minds. So what we talked about with Sarah invited herself onto our podcast. She's a friend of ours. And she wanted to come on and talk about what it means to live an authentic life. Because while she's not LGBTQ herself, she saw a lot of parallels between her experience growing up in an Asian household as a woman, or a girl growing up in an Asian household in Canada, to that of the LGBTQ community. In that there were a lot of expectations put on her, the type of job that she should get, the type of man that she should marry, how she was expected to take care of her family once she became financially independent herself. And she saw a lot of parallels with a lot of the expectations that we in the LGBTQ community, and as we can authentically talk about, as being gay men. So we thought that, hey, that's a great discussion. Sarah shared how she kind of rebelled against all this. She hated the idea that she had to live up to these expectations simply by virtue of where she was born and the time and place where she was born. So she did something that not a lot of women in her culture do. She decided to up and leave her home as soon as she could afford it, and travel to Australia and New Zealand on her own. She wasn't accompanied by a man. And that kind of made her parents very upset. She talked about how her father was very, very frustrated with her. Right. But it was something that she had to do because she thought it was important for her to live an authentic life. And living an authentically happy quality of life is something that David and I talk about a lot on the Queer Money podcast, as well as this Queer Money podcast follow-up series.
Yeah. What was interesting is Sarah talked about how being raised as a young Asian woman, there were these expectations, and actually some of these things were even forced on her. She was forced to go to a specific high school. Her parents forced her to apply to specific colleges, and they were basically setting her up for a life that was kind of this cookie cutter life that Asian women typically have. They marry the right person, they get the right kind of job, they give money back to their family, they have this cookie cutter life. And I think as queer folks, we oftentimes can resonate with that we have this cookie cutter, homogenistic
predetermined,
right, hetero lifestyle that we are supposed to try to squeeze ourselves into, whether it is that we are doing that as a queer person, or we feel like we must overlay that on ourselves and hide our queerness. And what that basically does is that stifles who we really are.
So we're not living authentically.
Right.
And to be clear, we're sharing the Asian female's experience based on what Sarah told us on episode 39 of the Queer Money podcast. We're not making any assumptions at all. So what we're going to cover on this particular Queer Money follow-up are the 5 questions to ask yourself to whether or not you're living a truly authentic life. This is very similar to what you and I kind of experienced when we realized we had $51,000 in credit card debt. One of the first things that we asked ourselves was, well, how did we get here? And
right.
Being in financial services, we have all the theoretical knowledge. We're advising people on what to do with their money. Why are we so miserable with our own money? And that started a series of questions of, how did we get here? Why are we here? What are we doing wrong? And what is it we ultimately want? And we realized that we were living up to everybody else's expectations and making up for past pain and not living an authentic life ourselves.
Well, we went, and we've talked about this on the podcast before, we went from this living the life that we thought we had to live based on our family. I was raised in a very religious household. I was raised a Jehovah's Witness, and I had a very structured life, and I wasn't allowed to deviate from that at all. But then once I left that, and you kind of had said similar, once we left that, our previous lives behind and accepted the fact that we were gay men, then we almost felt like then there was this cookie cutter gay life that we were supposed to live up to.
We had to have the awesome body. You have to have the right car, the right travel, the right clothing, the right job. You have to vote for the right person. Don't deviate from that one.
Right. And when we don't look beyond the requirements of our community, when we don't look beyond the requirements of who we are physically, we don't ever really accept who we are. We're constantly struggling with this level of acceptance. And what's so interesting about that is that when we really think about it, that's what we all really want, right? We want love and acceptance for who we are. But does love and acceptance come from masking who we are by trying to portray ourselves the way that some in our community say we have to, that Advocate and Out magazine say you have to, that Queerty and Facebook groups say you have to, right?
Nias Nin is famous for saying that we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. We see it through our own lens, and everybody has their own lens. Everybody's lenses are a different color. And it's almost as if a lot of us go through life not necessarily seeing life as we are, though I think that's definitely true. I would never challenge what Anais Nin has to say. But there's also, I think, we almost see the world as we're told to see the world.
Right.
And so we think that there is this one archetype of what it means to be a successful gay man. And unless we live up to that archetype, we're going to fail as adults, similarly as many of us feel like we failed as children.
Right. So let's get to these 5 questions.
Okay. What are the 5 questions? Steve?
So the first question, what is really going to make me happy? Which I think is such an interesting question that most of us really rarely stop and ask ourselves. Not what's going to make me happy in the moment, what's going to make me happy this week or this month, what is going to truly long-term make me happy? What do I really want out of this life that is going to bring me happiness?
Well, I thought it was very poignant that Sarah said in episode 39 of the Queer Money podcast, very often what makes you really authentically happy isn't necessarily a thing. And I think this is something that you and I have realized over the years. I know that initially we did our spending analysis, which was one of the first exercises we did to help get ourselves out of that $51,000 in credit card debt. But we kind of narrowed down the things that are most important to us. And we realized that it was travel, it was giving back to the LGBTQ community, and it was being able to save for a comfortable retirement. It wasn't necessarily a tangible thing, although probably the closest you can get to tangible is maybe travel, right? But over the years, since we've paid off our debt, 10 or so years since we've been debt free, we've even narrowed down the tangible things that we want. ultimately, you want your dream Audi.
Yeah.
We want our modern home somewhere. We don't even care where necessarily.
Most likely in the desert southwest.
And we want our 3 French bulldogs. And of all the tangible things that we want in life, it comes down to those 3 things. But I would argue that because we know the intangible things that we want, travel, comfortable retirement, and having the time and the money to be able to give back to the queer community, that even if we never achieve the tangible things, we'll still have an authentically happy life.
Right.
So what is the second question? After you figure out what it is that would really make you happy, the next question is, why do I want this? Why would, use our example, why would giving back to the queer community make us authentically happy?
Well,
why would that make us happy, David?
Well, I think that both of us are giving people, right? So that kind of gives, it feeds that desire to give to people. We also see what's going on in our community, and we understand that there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of unguidedness in our community that leads to true happiness. And that's why I think we want to give back, because we want to help. We've discovered what makes us happy. We've discovered the process that helps make us happy.
Process is important.
Yeah, and we want to share that process with other people so that they can become happy too.
Well, I think you and I also feel this sense of responsibility that because of the benefits that we have, the what's that popular word today, the privilege that we have, that we feel like we need to give back to our community to help those who don't necessarily have the same privileges.
Right. I mean, that's one of the reasons why on the Queer Money podcast, we talk to trans folks, people of color, lesbians, non-binary individuals. We invite these individuals onto our platform, our podcast, because 1, we want to give a voice to those people. 2, it helps us learn. And the reality is that 80% of the people who listen to the Queer Money podcast are white gay men.
Right.
And we all could use a little education from the rest of the community on what the rest of the community is dealing with.
Right. So that question was more rhetorical. I don't want to pat ourselves on the back. But so when you figure out what you think it is that's going to make you really happy, the question is, why do I think that this will make me happy? Because, as Jim Rohn says, when you have a strong enough why, you'll overcome any how. But then the next 3 questions are to dig even deeper. The next question is, why do I want this? Why do I want that? Why do I want that?
Right. Well, and let's use an example of, okay, I'm at the mall and I walk past Louis Vuitton and I see
Malls
the latest.
Don't exist anymore.
I see the latest Louis Vuitton bag, or I'm shopping online or whatever, right? So I see this Louis Vuitton bag. Why do I want the Louis Vuitton bag? Well, I think 1, it's a nice bag, it's durable, and it's good quality, right? But then why do I want a Louis Vuitton bag? Because there's lots of other bags that are good quality, that are durable, that are going to last. Why do I want the Louis Vuitton bag? Well, because I want the brand. Well, why do I want the brand? Well, because then people will know I have a Louis Vuitton bag.
There's a cachet to that.
Right? Well, why do I want people to know that I have a Louis Vuitton bag? Well, because then people will think I'm successful. Well, why do I want people to think I'm successful? Well, because I want people to like me because I'm a successful person. I want people to validate me as a successful person. Well, why do I need to be validated as a successful person? Right? And so if you back into the question over and over and over again, look at the deep meaning. What are you really getting at? And sometimes when you do that, you can actually find a way to get what it is you want in a much more meaningful
and practical,
and in some cases a much cheaper way, right? Yeah. And I'm not knocking getting a Louis Vuitton bag. They're nice bags. If you want one, go get it. But make sure that you're actually doing it for a true seated reason rather than one that isn't going to bring you long-term happiness. And the reason I say that is John and I chased after the things. John bought Diesel jeans, T-shirts. I used to love Puma shoes. I think at one time I had more than 20 pairs of Puma shoes.
I will argue that my butt looked really good in the diesel jeans.
Well, they did, and that's the whole thing about all of this stuff, right? Oftentimes, there is a value to having
I could
it.
use that right now.
but if we're buying those things, there were a couple of guys in our circle of friends that also liked Puma shoes, and it was almost a competition. I would say I bought Puma shoes partly to live up to this ideal that I could be Nick and James' friend, right? That they would like me more if I had those. Well, that's not the reason to go buy something. It's not because I want to have friends, right? And that's why
and if
one
your
pair
friends
didn't
need you to own certain things or have certain things, you have to really question, and we don't do this, we say it a lot, but you have to really question, are they truly your friends? Do they like you for who you are?
Well, right, exactly. And the other thing is, if we are buying things to prove to people that we are good enough, we're not being authentic to ourselves. Right? What is being authentic to yourself? Right? Having real friends, like you said, that's what's being authentic.
Exactly. And that's, this kind of segues into a passion project that David and I are working on. It's trying to build a bigger community of enlightened and happy gay men. And so we put together a guide called The 5 Building Blocks of a Happy Gay Life, which you can get at debtfreeguys.com/5BBHGL.
It's actually debtfreeguys.com/5.
Oh, did you simplify it?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if you simplified it yet. I know we have to simplify it. So, and the reason that we've done a lot of research, as well as learning through our own experience, is that there's so much more to being a truly happy and authentic gay man than what, the media would have us believe. And, we've kind of narrowed it down to basically 5 building blocks that provide this holistic 360 happy gay life experience. And it comes down to love, money, wellness, lifestyle, and direction and purpose acted as the foundation. And so if you want more information about that, we would encourage you to get that free guide at debtfreeguys.com/5. So, but I think, Sarah shared an awesome quote on this particular episode. She said, ultimately, you know what you want. Your fear is in what happens when you define it. And I think that's very true because, when we finally decided that we were done living up to everybody else's expectations and we wanted to live our truly authentic life, we realized that there was certain kind of activities and spending that didn't align with our values. And so we kind of, it wasn't intentional, but it just happens the way it is that we kind of lost some friends in the process. And I think so many of us have this aversion to possibly losing friends.
Right. Oh my God. What will happen if they see me wearing the same T-shirt 3 weekends in a row? Right. I mean, it's like heaven forbid. Right. If your friends are going to judge you on the fact that you wore the same T-shirt 3 weekends in a row,
see ya.
Sayonara.
Well, and so Sarah also elaborated. She kind of said, if you close yourself off to people and experiences that no longer served you, you're not necessarily losing something. What you're doing is you're opening yourself up to people and experiences that will serve you. You're not going to be alone. It's just you're going to free yourself up to other people who actually align with what your core values are. And that not only makes you a happier person, but you can get the rest of your life, all those building blocks that we talked about previously, all aligned with what it is you truly want, and you can have that 360 happy experience.
And I will say, when you start to focus on what it is that makes you authentically happy, what brings you to happiness, you start to attract the kinds of people that are also seeking that same kind of happiness, right? When we are looking for authentic friends, we are going to find authentic friends. When we are looking for friends based on what we wear or the kind of car we drive or the job we have, you're going to find people that are going to placate that kind of lifestyle. You're going to find friends that are only going to like you because you have the nicest shit. You're going to find that the people only like you because you have the nice home. They only want to come over to your house because you have a nice home. They only want to be your friend because you have a nice home, right? And then we won't be able to have authentic conversations. We won't be able to have authentic relationships with those kinds of people. And we've seen this happen so many times where somebody starts dating someone because of the inauthentic relationship that they've created with them, and then the relationship falls apart. Right? They
usually dramatically.
Right. Then they find out that person really isn't what the shell is. Right. That's when it all kind of falls apart, and then that's when we get hurt. Right.
Right. But then we continue to repeat the cycle over and over again. We try to find another guy who will like the shell of us and not our authentic self, and then that doesn't work out. And I think that's, we see in a lot of LGBT, or I should be more specific, gay Facebook groups, guys constantly complaining that they can't find the right person. And I wonder to what extent that they're not finding the right person because they're not being their authentic selves. They're trying to be a version of themselves that they feel like is being projected on them. And the fact may be that they might not know that they're not being their authentic selves. Finding out what truly makes us happy is not necessarily something we celebrate in our society. We're kind of told from a very early age what we're supposed to be, do, and have. And so, it's kind of hard to overcome that conditioning, that indoctrination that you receive for the first 18 years of your life when you're finally grown up and out on your own, to finally discover who it is you truly are.
Well, and I would also add that I think when we're out there and we're searching for somebody, and we're searching for someone based on these certain expectations of the gay archetype, right? And we go after that person because they have the nice body, or we go after that person because they have the nice home, the stylish clothes. We go after them because of those. And like you said, it may not be that we're overtly, but maybe somewhere subconsciously, we are going after those kinds of individuals because of those kinds of things. And when we then see what's behind that veneer, when we see what's behind that shell, then all of a sudden we're shocked to find out that that's not the kind of person I really wanted. And that's why the relationship ends, or that we don't ever really connect with them, is because what we were looking for in them isn't true and authentic. And what we were looking for in ourselves isn't true and authentic.
Exactly. So we would encourage you to ask this question of yourself: what it is that really makes you happy. Grab your journal, grab a piece of paper, ask yourself what it is that would really make you happy. And then 3, 4, 5 layers deep, or as long as you can continue, ask yourself why. Why the above? Why the above? Why the above? And take it down as deep as you can and see what it is you discover. And then meanwhile, grab your free copy of the 5 Building Blocks of a Happy Gay Life at debtfreeguys.com/5, and take this conversation with yourself a little bit deeper. And we would love to know, I don't know if we actually asked this question from the very beginning. In the comments below, let us know if you're living your truest, authentic life. We would love to hear what your thoughts are. I'm sure that lots of people won't have the courage to answer that authentically.
But if you think that you are living our authentic, truly authentic life, we'd love to give an example of something that you do that helps you live that authentic life. I think that we get stuck in the gay community that there's only a certain number of things that we can be validated with, and sometimes it's great to see that there are other things that individuals or groups of people are doing that are outside of the norm, outside of the queer box, but still plenty queer, that is really authentic, and then we can resonate with that, or we can say, oh, I can do that too.
Yeah, I would love to hear those comments. So let us know if you're living your authentic life, and if you are, share how you're doing that. And then join us tomorrow for Queer Money Follow-Up episode number 40, when we cover Queer Money Podcast episode number 40. And that is, we talk with Megan Lathrop about why you might actually want a money coach. And then, as always, please remember to, whatever channel you're on, like, subscribe, and set notifications on this channel so you can join us for these daily discussions, and they will stay daily as long as we can stay sane. Thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow.